Hola, hola, hola. ¿Qué onda todos? ¿Cómo andamos? Bienvenidos al canal. Y para mis suscriptores, bienvenidos de nuevo. Hoy escuchamos la canción La Camisa Negra del cantante colombiano Juanes y hablaremos de lo que podemos aprender. So let's get right to it.
No por pobre y feo, pero antojado.
Okay, so we barely started the song and we've already got something interesting to talk about here. So that word antojado, meaning desired, it comes from the verb antojarse. Now that is a reflexive verb which always uses an indirect object to describe the person that is craving something. So it's really, it's like saying entice. It's always used reflexively for the object or the thing that's enticing to us. So when we're in the mood for something, when we have a craving for something, we would say something like se me antoja. So the thing that we're craving is actually what's performing the action, and then we are affected by it as the indirect object. So this is just like other verbs like gustar. When you say me gusta eso, I like that, you're not really saying I like that, you're saying it's pleasing to me. Or me interesa, you're not saying I am interested in it, you're saying it is interesting to me. So here in this case we're saying se me antoja, which is it is enticing to me, or I have a craving for it, basically is what we're getting across. We can ask our friends something like ¿Qué se te antoja? Which is, what are you in the mood for? Or what do you have a craving for when you're talking about like what you're gonna eat or whatever. So you could say something like se me antoja una pizza. I have a craving for a pizza. I feel like having a pizza. Another really common way of saying something just like this is with the word ganas and the verb tener. So to say tengo ganas de means I have a desire for, or I'm in the mood for. So you can use it for verbs, you can use it for nouns. So tengo ganas de correr, I feel like running, or tengo ganas de un pastel, I feel like a cake, I feel like having a cake. Keep that word ganas in mind. It's very useful, and you're going to find it all across the language in a lot of different places when we're talking about like motivation or desire to do something. So yeah, let's continue.
Tengo la camisa negra, hoy mi amor está de luto. Hoy tengo en el alma una pena y es por culpa de tu embrujo. Hoy sé que tú ya no me quieres y eso es lo que más me hiere.
Okay, so we've got a really big one here, which I know that Profe Austin's going to want to do a structured lesson on at some point, but that lo que, which basically means the thing that or what, but not in the sense of a question of what. That would be the word que with an accent over the E. So lo que, meaning the thing that or what, is used in all sorts of different things. It's kind of like a generic thing that we can say to describe something. So when we say lo que más me gusta, that's saying the thing that I like most, or what I like most is whatever. So lo is used all over the place in Spanish, and lo que is also used all over the place. So definitely keep that in mind. And like I talked about in a previous immersion exercise, if we want to use that with an adjective, lo with an adjective, it basically just means the adjective thing. So lo bueno is the good thing, and lo importante is the important thing. But when you use it with que, lo que, you're saying the thing that, to introduce a verb that's going to come after it. So it's a thing that does something in some scenario. Okay, let's move on.
Que tengo la camisa negra y una pena que me duele. Mal parece que solo me quedé y fue pura todita tu mentira. Que maldita mala suerte la mía que aquel día te encontré por beber del veneno malevo de tu amor. Yo quedé moribundo y lleno de dolor. Respiré de ese humo amargo de tu adiós y desde que tú te fuiste yo solo tengo
Okay, so this is another really big one here. Desde que means since. Now, desde, it oftentimes translates to from or since, but when it's used with specific moments, we'll just say desde. So like when we want to say since then, we would say desde entonces. Now, if we use it with the word que, that's going to introduce a specific action that something happened since then. So in this case, the line is desde que tú te fuiste. So it's since you left. Desde que is always going to be used to introduce a verb or a specific action, but desde is just going to be used to introduce a specific moment, but not one that's described by a specific action, but rather just a certain point in time. Now, if we want to talk about something that happened a certain period of time ago, we would actually use hace from the verb hacer. So when we say hace plus an amount of time, so hace un mes, that's a month ago. Hace un año, that's a year ago. So if I wanted to say hace un año fui a Japón, that would be a year ago I went to Japan. And you can actually combine these two. So if you take desde, which means since, and then hace, which is used to say ago, so desde hace means since some amount of time ago. So if you're talking about something that changed or something that has been altered since a certain point in time, and you want to talk about that in terms of an amount of time, you'd say desde hace. And then you can say whatever you want after that. So desde hace is going to be used to say since a certain period of time ago, whereas desde is just going to be since a certain point in time. And then desde que is going to be since a certain action at a certain point in time. Okay, let's continue.
Tengo la camisa negra, porque negra tengo el alma. Yo por ti perdí la calma y casi pierdo hasta mi cama. Cama, 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 baby. Te digo con disimulo que tengo la camisa negra y debajo tengo el difunto. A enterrártelo cuando quieras, mamita. Camisa negra, ya tu amor no me interesa. Lo que ayer me supo a gloria, hoy me sabe a pura.
Okay, so here's an interesting one here. So that me supo a and me sabe a, it comes from the verb saber. Now, a lot of you guys, I'm sure you already know the word saber is used generally to mean to know, in the sense of like knowing facts or information or skills. Like when you say sé manejar, which means I know how to drive. You conjugate the verb saber into the subject that you're talking about, and then you use the infinitive of the verb that you're talking about. So in this case, sé manejar, I know how to drive. Sé nadar, I know how to swim. Now, saber is different from the verb conocer. Conocer means to be familiar with or to meet. It's more complicated than that. So we're definitely going to do a structured lesson on that some point with Profe Austin. If you're not subscribed already, now's a good time to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that. Saber and conocer, they're very similar in a lot of ways, but they're also very different in a lot of ways. And sometimes you can choose to pick one or the other, and there's certain connotations that come with choosing one or the other. So we'll do that deep dive at another point. But in this case here, saber also means to taste like. Now, it's always going to use that word a followed immediately after it. So saber a. So when you say sabe a, it means it tastes like. So if you're going to use the indirect object to say it tastes to a specific person, like, so me sabe a means it tastes to me like, or you're just saying when you're eating something, it tastes like. So esta sopa sabe a pollo. This soup tastes like chicken. Okay, so Here's a funny one. So, miércoles is the word meaning Wednesday. But in this case, it's actually being used to tone down a swear word, which is mierda. This is just like how we in English would say something like, shut the front door, or, oh, fudge. It's just taking a swear word and it's toning it down to make it a little more palatable. But we can definitely tell here that that's exactly what he's doing, because the word right before it is pura. Now that is a feminine adjective. Now miércoles is a masculine noun. It's el miércoles. So if he really wanted to say Wednesday, he would have said sabe a puro miércoles. That's not what he said. He said pura. And then he said miércoles por la tarde. So he was gonna say mierda, he was gonna say shit, but he's changing it just to kind of tone it down. Now this is something that happens a lot in the Spanish speaking world when they try to tone down swear words. Actually, if you guys have seen the movie Encanto, when Mirabel's dad, Agustin, which by the way is basically the Spanish version of my name, Austin, Agustin comes from the same origins, but he when he finds out that Dolores had heard them talking about Bruno's vision, he says miércoles. So that's them toning down that swear word. Okay, let's move on.
Tú que no llegas, ni siquiera muestras señas, y yo con la camisa negra y tus maletas en la puerta. Mal parece que solo me quedé y fue pura todita tu mentira. Qué maldita mala suerte la mía que aquel día te encontré. Por beber del veneno malevo de tu amor, yo quedé moribundo y lleno de dolor. Respiré de ese humo amargo de tu adiós, y desde que tú te fuiste yo solo tengo la camisa negra, porque negra tengo el alma. Yo por ti perdí la calma y casi pierdo hasta mi cama. Cama, baby, te digo con disimulo.
Okay, so what the heck does that word mean? Dissimulation. Well, it basically means pretense. Now, if you're not familiar with what that means, dissimulation is basically the act of concealing how we feel or our true thoughts or even our true character. It's pretense. It's basically pretending that something isn't what it actually is. So the verb disimular, it's used a lot in Spanish. It's going to talk about us hiding our feelings. This is one of the things I like to talk about a lot, that Spanish has a lot of very specific vocabulary that you're just not going to find in English in a single word. But in this case here, disimular, it's just used to say concealing how someone really feels. So if we want to say, ella disimula su frustración con su marido, she's hiding or she's concealing her frustration with her husband. So we can also use disimular with the word que to talk about pretending that something is the case. So if we want to say disimulemos que esto nunca sucedió, that's let's pretend that this never happened. Now that's not really quite as common. You're gonna see the word fingir used a lot more with that pretend usage. So if we want to say, let's pretend that this never happened, it's a lot more likely that Spanish speakers would say, finjamos que esto nunca sucedió. Okay, let's continue.
Que tengo la camisa negra y debajo tengo el difunto. Tengo la camisa negra porque negra tengo el alma. Yo por ti perdí la calma y casi pierdo hasta mi cama. Cama, baby, te digo con disimulo que tengo la camisa negra y debajo tengo el difunto.
Okay, amigos. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Muchísimas gracias por ver. Espero volver a verlos pronto. Adiós.